The dense Appalachian woods were cloaked in twilight as a group of friends set up camp near a babbling creek. Among them was Sarah, an adventurous soul with a passion for ghost stories. As dusk deepened, the laughter and chatter around the crackling campfire were replaced by uneasy whispers of local legends, none more infamous than that of the Wailing woman. According to lore, deep in these mountains, a sorrowful spirit roamed the trails, her mournful cries echoing through the night. It was said she had once been a young bride whose husband died in a tragic mining accident, leaving her heartbroken and vengeful. Now, cursed to wander for eternity, her keening lament foretold misfortune for any who heard it. As the firelight flickered, Sarah recounted the legend, her voice low and tremulous. Her friends exchanged nervous glances, but the thrill of the story sent shivers down their spines. Soon after her tale, a sudden, eerie wail drifted over the clearing, a sound so mournful and piercing that even the wind seemed to fall silent. The group fell quiet. At first, they assumed it was a trick of the night, but then the cry came again, closer this time, a long, sorrowful lament that seemed to vibrate in the very air. Sarah's eyes widened as she remembered the legend. She insisted they pack up and leave, but the others, caught between fear and disbelief, urged caution instead of panic. With a palpable tension hanging over them, they began to gather their belongings. Suddenly, from the edge of the tree line, a figure emerged, a woman in a tattered white dress, her hair matted and eyes brimming with unspeakable sorrow. She glided across the clearing without a sound, her face contorted in grief. The friends froze, hearts pounding in unison as the apparition approached. The Wailing woman stopped beside the fire, her transparent form barely illuminated by the dying embers. Her lips parted, and for a moment, the air was filled with a desperate, wordless plea. Then she began to wail again, a cry that tore at the soul and chilled the blood. The sound was layered with regret and agony, as if each note carried the weight of decades of torment. Sarah, trembling but resolute, stepped forward. "What do you want?" she called, voice quavering yet determined. The figure's eyes locked with hers, and in that moment, Sarah felt an overwhelming sorrow, as though the ghost's grief was seeping into her bones. The Wailing woman's head tilted slowly, her gaze beseeching. In a whisper almost lost in the night, she spoke, "Help me. Release me." A hush fell over the group. The ghost's plea echoed in the silence, and every friend felt the gravity of her despair. Sarah recalled fragments of the legend, that the woman's spirit was bound by an old curse, forced to mourn for her lost love until someone could reconcile the past. Determined to help, Sarah asked softly, "How can we help you?" The apparition's expression shifted, a sorrowful sadness deepening into a glimmer of hope. Slowly, she reached toward the ground and pointed to an old, rusted locket lying amid the fallen leaves near the fire. The friends exchanged confused looks, but Sarah retrieved the object. Its surface was etched with a single initial and a faint, nearly illegible inscription. A date from long ago. The locket, it seemed, was the final remnant of the love that had been lost. Almost immediately, the wind picked up, swirling around the group as if carrying the spirit's energy. The ghost's wail softened, replaced by a quiet murmur of gratitude. "Return what is mine," the woman whispered, her voice merging with the sighing wind. Sensing that the locket was the key to breaking her curse, Sarah carefully opened it. Inside lay a miniature portrait of a young couple, a bride and her groom, smiling in happier times. Understanding dawned on the group. The couple in the locket was once bound by love, now shattered by tragedy. They decided to leave the locket at the base of an ancient oak, where local lore said the spirits of lost lovers were reunited. With cautious steps, Sarah and her friends made their way through the moonlit woods to the venerable tree. There, beneath its sprawling branches, they laid the locket on a bed of moss and whispered a prayer of farewell. Almost instantly, a hush fell over the night. The oppressive sorrow lifted, replaced by a gentle calm. Back at the camp, the Wailing woman appeared one final time. Her face, though still marked with grief, softened into a semblance of peace. With a final, tender smile and a soft murmur of thanks, she faded into the darkness, her eternal lament finally silenced. The friends returned to their tents in stunned silence, each carrying the memory of that heart-wrenching encounter. As dawn broke over the Appalachian mountains, they knew they had witnessed something inexplicable. a moment when the past and the supernatural collided, leaving behind a bittersweet promise that even the most sorrowful souls could find release. Nestled in a remote valley of the Appalachian Mountains lay a town shrouded in mystery and malediction. This forsaken settlement, known only as Raven's Hollow, had been abandoned decades ago after a series of unexplainable tragedies. Yet every so often, brave or foolish campers would venture into the wilderness near its borders, drawn by legends of a cursed town that refused to die. One crisp autumn evening, a group of friends led by Jake, an avid explorer with an insatiable curiosity for the paranormal, pitched their tents on the outskirts of Raven's Hollow. The fading light cast long shadows over dilapidated buildings that peeked through the trees, and an eerie silence blanketed the area. As darkness fell, the group gathered around a campfire to share stories. Jake recounted the grim history of Raven's Hollow. Once a thriving mining town, it had fallen into ruin after a mysterious collapse that claimed hundreds of lives. Superstition and fear drove the survivors away, and the town was cursed to remain in perpetual decay, haunted by the tormented souls of its past. Laughter and skepticism filled the circle, but as the fire dwindled, unsettling sounds began to seep into the conversation. Faint footsteps, the rustling of leaves in unnatural patterns, and the occasional distant, mournful cry blurred the line between myth and reality. Jake, eager to prove the curse was nothing more than local lore, proposed a midnight excursion into the heart of the cursed town. Reluctantly, a few friends agreed. With flashlights in hand and hearts pounding, they left the relative safety of the campsite and made their way along a narrow, overgrown path toward Raven's Hollow. The closer they got, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The wind seemed to whisper warnings through broken windows, and the dilapidated houses exuded an aura of despair. As they entered the town square, a thick fog rolled in, muffling their footsteps and distorting familiar shapes into ghostly silhouettes. In the center of the square stood a crumbling stone fountain, its water long since dried up. Around it, graffiti and cryptic symbols were scrawled on the walls, a mixture of desperate pleas and malevolent warnings. Suddenly, one of Jake's friends, Lisa, gasped. "Did you see that?" she whispered, pointing to the shadowy outline of a figure near the fountain. At first, it seemed like a trick of the light, but as they approached, the figure became clearer. A gaunt man with hollow eyes and a twisted smile, his presence both sorrowful and sinister. He moved slowly, as though weighed down by centuries of regret. The friends froze. The apparition raised a bony hand and pointed toward one of the ruined houses, then vanished into the fog. Jake's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. He urged his friends to follow the spectral guide. Reluctantly, they entered the house. Inside, remnants of life were scattered. A broken mirror, a child's toy, and faded photographs clinging to the walls. In a corner, a dusty ledger lay open on a creaking table, its pages filled with names and dates. It seemed to chronicle the town's final days, each entry ending in abrupt, jagged scrawls as if written in terror. As the clock in the town square began to toll midnight, a low, mournful hum resonated through the house. Shadows twisted and contorted, and the temperature plummeted. Lisa screamed as a ghostly wail erupted from the walls, a sound that carried the grief and fury of Raven's Hollow's lost souls. In that moment, the curse was undeniable. The building shuddered, and dust cascaded from the ceiling as if the very structure were collapsing under the weight of its history. Panicked, the group raced out of the house, their flashlights barely piercing the thick fog. Behind them, the town seemed to awaken, a cacophony of whispering voices, mournful cries, and the distant clanging of a bell that no longer had a tower. The spectral figure reappeared, this time with a look of desperation. It beckoned to them, imploring, "Remember us, break the curse." Jake, now trembling with a mix of horror and empathy, gathered the ledger and the scattered photographs. He sensed that the only way to lift the curse was to honor the memories of those who had perished and to acknowledge the pain of their untimely demise. With reverence, the group returned to the camp and spent the rest of the night piecing together the ledger's entries and the fragments of history. At dawn, as the fog receded and the oppressive atmosphere lifted, Jake and his friends held a small, impromptu memorial by the ruined fountain. They recited the names from the ledger and left tokens of remembrance: a flower, a candle, a whispered prayer. As the first rays of sunlight touched Raven's Hollow, the sound of wailing diminished into a soft, almost grateful sigh. The curse, it seemed, had been eased, if only for a moment. Though the town remained a ghost of its former self, the group departed with heavy hearts and a newfound respect for the tragic legacy of Raven's Hollow. The ledger and photographs became a cherished reminder of that night, a testament to the power of remembrance in the face of unspeakable sorrow. And as they drove away, the echoes of the past faded, leaving behind a lingering hope that even the darkest curses might be broken with compassion and understanding. Deep within the ancient, rugged trails of the Appalachian Mountains lay a clearing known only to a few, a place where whispers of old magic and forbidden rituals still clung to the trees. A group of adventurous campers, led by Marcus, set out one crisp autumn weekend, drawn by tales of a hidden coven rumored to meet under the light of the full moon. Marcus was no stranger to legends. He had heard stories of witches who roamed these woods, practicing rites that twisted nature itself. Though skeptical, he couldn't resist the thrill of discovering the truth behind the myth. Along with his closest friends, Elena, a resourceful skeptic, and David, an avid photographer, they pitched their tents in a secluded clearing, surrounded by towering pines and moss-draped oaks. As night fell, the trio built a fire and began to share campfire tales. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the promise of mystery. Soon, strange occurrences began to unfold. The wind picked up unexpectedly, carrying with it a series of whispered incantations that none of them could decipher. Shadows danced in patterns that seemed almost intentional. At first, they laughed it off as their imaginations running wild. But then, a figure emerged from the darkness. A woman draped in flowing dark robes, her face partially hidden by a wide-brimmed hat adorned with strange symbols. Her eyes shone with an eerie, otherworldly light as she glided silently into the circle of the fire. The campers fell silent. The woman's presence was both mesmerizing and menacing. In a soft, measured tone, she spoke, "You have trespassed on sacred ground." Her voice was lilting, echoing as if from another realm. Marcus tried to ask who she was, but before he could speak, more figures appeared from behind the trees. Other women, each dressed in similar attire, forming a circle around the clearing. The air grew charged with tension. Elena's skepticism wavered as the women began a low, rhythmic chant. David snapped photos frantically, capturing flashes of candlelight and the strange symbols etched into tree bark that seemed to glow with an inner fire. The coven's chanting rose in intensity, and the ground beneath the clearing trembled as if the earth itself were participating in the ritual. One of the women stepped forward. "For centuries, we have protected the ancient ways, preserving the balance of nature and spirit. But those who disrespect our secrets invite chaos." Her eyes locked with Marcus's as if measuring his very soul. "Tonight, you must prove your worth, or you shall be bound by our curse." Fear and curiosity warred within the campers. Marcus, summoning his courage, asked, "What must we do?" The leader's gaze softened, and she produced a small, ornate vial filled with a shimmering, iridescent liquid. "Drink this, and you will see the truth of our world," she intoned. "Refuse, and you may never find your way out of these woods." Time seemed to stretch as the three friends exchanged uncertain glances. Elena's voice trembled as she said, "This is insane. Magic, curses, but perhaps there is truth in our legends." With a mix of apprehension and determination, Marcus took the vial first, followed by Elena and David. The liquid was cool and tasted faintly of earth and ancient herbs. Almost instantly, their vision blurred, and the woods transformed before their eyes. They found themselves in a realm where every leaf shimmered with spectral light, where the boundaries between the physical and the ethereal blurred. The coven's chanting was now a harmonious chorus that resonated deep within their bones. They witnessed visions of past rituals, of ancient pacts made with the forces of nature, and of the delicate balance between life and death in the wild Appalachian expanse. For what felt like both an eternity and a single heartbeat, the friends were shown the secrets of the woods, the cycles of nature, the interconnectedness of all living things, and the cost of disturbing that balance. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the vision faded. They were back in the clearing, the coven's circle complete and the fire crackling gently. The leader spoke once more. You have seen what lies beyond, and now you carry the burden of knowledge. Respect these lands, honor the ancient ways, and the curse will be lifted from your hearts. With that final pronouncement, the women melted back into the shadows, leaving the campers alone beneath the starry Appalachian sky. Shaken yet profoundly changed, Marcus, Alina, and David gathered their gear in silence. The coven's ritual had etched an indelible mark upon their souls. As they trudged back through the moonlit woods, every rustle of leaves and whisper of wind carried the echoes of the witches' incantations. A constant reminder that in these ancient mountains, magic was as real as the earth beneath their feet. In the days that followed, the trio struggled to reconcile the experience with their former skepticism. David's photos bore strange, unexplainable symbols. Elena found herself inexplicably drawn to the old folklore of the region, and Marcus, once a mere thrill-seeker, now carried the weight of a sacred secret. The Appalachian Nights had revealed a hidden world, a world where witches guarded the balance of nature with unwavering resolve, and those who dared to challenge their domain would never be the same again.